Okay, welcome to this video on what's the definition of GDP. If you remember from our lectures, we've been talking about defining the size of an economy and how can we measure the total amount of an economy. And one of the things we talked about is the GDP, or gross domestic product. So the definition of gross domestic product, we're going to look at it in detail today, essentially is the market value of all final goods and services produced within a country in a given time period. So there's a lot in that definition, so let's unpack. The first part, the market value. What does market value refer to? Let's suppose a country is producing different goods and services. In simplicity, think a country producing oranges and bananas. Then how can we add up oranges and bananas? A famous saying in economics, you can't add up different goods, oranges and bananas. So how do we do that? We got to give a value. How much is an orange worth? How much is a banana worth? So we can all of them add together. Normally what we do, use the market value. What is the market value? Is the price at which people are willing to trade oranges for bananas in the marketplace. So that gives us a value of how much society values an orange relative to a banana and so forth. So that's the part about market value. So here we have a simple example. Let's suppose we have 10 oranges and each orange costs 50 cents, and we have 10 cloaks. Each cloak costs costs $40, and 6 swords, each one costs $100. Then we'll just multiply by the price to get a dollar value and I'll add them all up. It's essentially the same thing that you do when you go to a cashier at the supermarket and you want to know how much does all these, eggs, tomatoes, milk, cereal, all the things you bought, you multiply by the price and you add them together. And that's the market value, okay? Now, what do we mean by final goods and services? This is a more subtle point. Final goods and services essentially is about not double counting things. So let's do a simple example. Let's suppose that we have an economy where we have $4,000 worth of iron, and we're going to turn that through production into $8,000 worth of steel, and then we add $1,000 worth of tires, and we turn that into a car, okay, $20,000 car. Now, would we say that the total value of production in this economy, do we add the $4,000 of the iron plus the $8,000 of the steel plus the tires plus the car? Do we say the total value is $33,000? Well, the problem is that if we do that, the value of the steel includes the iron that was used to produce. And then the value of the car includes the value of the steel and the value of the tire. And so if we add, we would be double counting the value of the inputs that we use for producing the car, for example, the steel. And so to avoid that, we don't count the goods that are used for the production of the good. We only count final goods. So saying that the final value is $33,000 will double count the value of the steel, and it will kind of in a way triple count the value of the iron. It will count the iron, the value of the iron inside the steel, and then the value of the iron inside the steel that is inside the car. So that will give us an inflated number, okay? And so in this economy, we would say the value of the final good is the value of the car, because all other goods are used for production of the car, and so the $20,000 of the car includes all of the other goods that were used for production. Those goods that are used for production, like the steel, are called intermediate goods. So intermediate goods are goods that are used for the production of other goods. Final goods are goods that are purchased by consumer and they're not used for further production. So for GDP, we only count final goods and services to avoid double counting. This also applies for services. If you are hiring, somebody to do some work as a final good, as a consumer, that will count toward GDP. If you're hiring someone to do some work for the production of another good, then that will not be counted. That will be considered an intermediate service. Okay, so the other element of the definition is produced within a country. So that means the production that takes place throughout the geographical boundaries of the country. Now, this is why this is called domestic product as opposed to national product. National product will look at the goods and services produced by inputs of production, people, and capital of a certain nationality. In this case, we're looking at domestic product. Domestic refers to a geographic boundary. So we're going to look at the goods and services, final goods and services produced within the borders of Canada or within the borders of Mexico or United States and so on. So as an example, we can think of which one of these are counted for US GDP. If we produce an American truck in a US American company plant, that will count as GDP because it's produced within the United States. If we produce a Japanese car, an Honda Accord, within the US boundary, even though that's a Japanese company, it will be produced within the geography of the United States. That will count towards US GDP, but it will count towards Japan's national product. Okay, so that's the distinction there. And then the final part of the definition has to do with over a period of time. When we're talking about GDP, GDP is what we call a flow variable. So it means when are these goods and services produced? And so we have to specify a time frame. It could be what were the goods and services produced over a month, over a quarter of the year, over a whole year. Typically, GDP is measured on a quarterly basis or on an annual basis. So we look at all the goods and services produced in an economy over a year or over a quarter, and so on and so forth. Okay, so this is the basic elements of the definition of GDP. Thank you for watching.